It's time for Wise Money with Korhorn Financial Group with financial advisors Kevin Korhorn, Mike Bernard, and Josh Gregory.
Welcome to another episode of the Wise Money Show with Korhorn Financial Group, where every week we're helping you take your next wise step in your financial life. My name's Mike Bernard. I am one of the certified financial planners on the show. I'm also your host. Thank you so much for being with us. Here with me in the KFG studios, across from me, Kevin Korhorn. Between us, Josh Gregory.
Yes, summer is almost over and school is about to start. So we thought we'd focus on education to kick off the show today. And specifically, what are the foundational financial skills that high schools and colleges should be teaching but aren't? And are you a victim?
Ooh.
Should you remain a victim? Is it possible to learn these skills from some other place? So we're going to be teaching that and more this hour.
That's right. If you have any questions, if you have questions about your own situation, have needs, reach out to us. We'd love to help. If you have questions for the show as well, you can reach out to us also. 574-222-2000. You can call or text us, 574-222-2000. And online, wisemoneyradio.com, there's a spot to catch every previous episode right there, but also on the right, you can submit a question, turns into an email, goes right to me. And then all over social media, just search Wise Money Show, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, podcast, and you can catch all the content there, and you can submit questions there as well and reach us also. So thank you very much for doing so. All right, like Kevin said, summer's over. So Carrington loves to sleep. She gets that from her dad. Kuiper, he hates sleep, so he'll stay up late and wake up early. But yeah, Carrington's world is about to turn upside down. She's got to start waking up. But so we're sort of always in political season, but it's really ramping up here. And over the next 12 months, just so many commercials about it. But education is really in the news a lot, and it's certainly being hit on the campaign trails. And I've taken the bait. We are going to be talking about free college and talking about what to do with student debt and all these things that people are campaigning about. And not because we want to jump into the political ring about it, but it's financial and it's habits and it's decisions. And it's so we're going to be talking about it on an upcoming program. But today I want to talk about what schools are not teaching kids that they need to know about their finances. I'm talking basic financial skills that the average person, whether you're graduating in high school and entering the workforce or from college and entering the workforce, you're not taught these things. So our society is just hoping that you've already picked it up somewhere else, maybe from your parents. We talked about being a financial role model a few weeks ago, or just maybe from your own experiences, making some mistakes and learning from them. I don't know if that's adequate. Even the U.S. Treasury came out with a strong recommendation that a financial literacy course be required in colleges. I think that's too late. I think it's too late, personally.
Definitely.
So, all right, but let's jump in to what the basic financial skills are. But hang on, before we do so, guys, what are your thoughts about when it should be taught, or what should be taught, or whether it should be taught?
Well, I can only lean on my own experience, and I took an elective course when I was in college called Personal Finance, and it is one of two classes that I think should be required of every major that's out there. I think communication skills would be the other one, because no matter what career or field you go into, you have to be a great communicator. But personal finance, you think about how many majors out there, they'll graduate with a degree, but then they'll work in a totally different field. But if you can acquire these skills in college, these will serve you well for your entire career, whatever direction that goes. So I personally believe that personal finance should be a class that every single college student should take. I hesitate to say that as strongly about high school, only because maybe you're just further away from getting to that point where you have paycheck money, you actually have some of these decisions. The risk would be, if that was all the exposure you got, is it too early actually for you to implement it, and you actually forget a lot of the stuff that you learned along the way.
I disagree and agree.
Okay.
Because but there's going to be a lot of people who will go into the trades or go into the family
True.
business.
That's true.
And you've still got to know you've got to have the raw materials. But I don't think it should stop there. If it starts in high school, it shouldn't stop there.
Certainly, as a freshman in high school, there should be a class taught on how to pay for college.
Yep.
And what
I think that was the angle of the U.S. Treasury. I think they were attacking this based on, hey, we've got all this student debt. And my thought, you said freshman, I like that idea, but my thought was, okay, if you're going to educate people on how to pay for college in college,
Right.
that's like shutting the barn door after the horses are out, right?
yeah. Yeah, said,
Good farm analogy there, Mike.
Come on, boy.
It almost sounded like you knew what you were talking about.
No, it didn't.
You had panic in your eyes, though. You're like, wait, you do keep horses in a barn, right?
no.
Call you Mr. Green Jeans over there. So, yeah, I think you're right. 18-year-olds are not great at assessing risk, and so yet you're offered all of this money and your ability. I was just someplace talking to someone who had a law degree and $300,000 of student loan debt. And I thought, how is that even possible? And yet it is because there are willing dealers who will continue to deal that drug called free money, or so it feels like, because it feels like free money until you're completely hooked.
Yeah.
And you're too far down the road to turn around and be smart about it.
I completely agree with this whole premise, though, that high school students need to understand just the financial principles of how you pay for college or how you get your start in life after high school. And that does involve how you borrow money as well. What are the risks involved with that? It is an epidemic in this country. It's something that needs to be solved. But in my own personal opinion, I don't trust the politicians to figure that out. I think that it really needs to happen at an individual level. We need to be educating our youth on this so that they are more skillful.
I totally agree with that as well, which is we had a show about being a financial role model, and I look at how many thumbs up, thumb down shares and that sort of stuff, and I maybe we just didn't deliver it well. There just wasn't enough people listening to that show, because I actually think that's where a lot of the education needs to start, is the close people around you. All right, so let's talk about the basic financial principles and skills that someone needs to acquire. Now, we've got several. I want to start off with the three most basic, and then we'll add to it. And it's the one that, Kevin, you already brought up. The first foundational financial skill that, in my opinion, needs to be discussed and taught is budgeting. Oh, we were talking about that on a previous show. Sorry, when you were talking about that. But to me, it needs to be budgeting. If you're a high school student and you're told about the cost of college and debt and all of that, but if you don't understand how to budget and really the context of what that payment will actually feel like in a budget, it doesn't mean anything to you. So to me, that is a basic foundation skill that needs to be taught, budgeting.
I agree with that, actually, but I think there might be one that's even more basic or even more foundational, and it's maybe one that we take for granted, and that is the ability or the skill at setting those goals. When you have the goals, when you have the targets in mind, budgeting is the next skill, though, that will support all of them for your entire life. And it's really how you manage cash flow. There's going to be potentially millions of dollars that pass through your hands over an entire working career. And the question is, how much of it is steered in a direction that is appropriate for your goals and what kind of financial future you want, versus kind of wandering off or just habits driving a lot of those decisions, maybe even carelessness at times. But a budget is really a plan for your cash flow, telling your money where to go instead of getting down the road and realizing, boy, I don't know where it went.
And you're saying you need goals before you tell your money where to go. You've got
I think so.
Okay. Okay. It looks like we've got another opinion in the room. We actually, there's several foundational skills. So whether you've already acquired these or you've got a student in high school or college right now that needs to hear these, we're going to be breaking them down. So a lot more here to come here on Wise Money with Korhorn Financial Group. Sorry.
Are you giving me a crazy eyeball over there?
Well, it's interesting. I don't think you're wrong. I just don't think you're right. So hopefully we can hit that
can't wait to hear
in
this.
the next segment.
You talked about habits, though. YouTube, Atomic Habits is the book.
Did you get into it?
Oh my goodness!
Yeah.
Yes,
My kids are totally pumped.
it's one of the books that I instantly bought another copy. I read the introduction. I bought another copy, gave it to my brother, and it's one of the books that, as I'm reading, I'm like, okay, this is required curriculum for my kids. You have to read this. And the fact, as a guy who's involved in baseball and softball every moment that I'm not at work, that it starts with a real life baseball analogy or baseball story, like it's got that undertone. Just I don't know, it helps me, so I
Yeah.
can really connect to it.
Well, so Josh and I met him.
You
in-
did?
Yeah. In Austin.
That's what I was saying. I think maybe before he had made it big, he was a speaker at one of the conferences, and
I wasn't at the Austin one.
Well, he it was at the Point
That was
Guard
just the
College.
two of
Oh,
us.
Yeah.
was it? Okay.
Yeah, it was just
oh,
me
is
and
that
Josh.
where that was?
Yeah.
Oh,
Remember?
yeah, I do now.
And so big,
Which would make
Yeah.
sense.
Tall, bald
because
guy.
Yeah.
Athletic, you know, yeah, cool.
I thought it was at a financial planning
No,
association.
I came away from his talk and told Kirk Hewlett, hey, you need to get this guy to speak. He's stinking amazing. And the content, what he has to share, and I've been getting his.
You told me to follow him or something, so I have. I just didn't know when you told me or why. And it's good
So
stuff.
the best. So we were. I'd taken the boys and their friends up north for a little mini vacation, and I knew these guys were cashed and were going to sleep on the way home. So I said, "Hey, can I listen to what I want to listen to?" And they said, "Yeah." So I hadn't read it yet, so I hit the deal, and they got sucked in. I mean, they
Didn't
got
sleep, huh?
They got
great.
totally.
That's great.
That's a great book to get sucked into.
There's a show or two, maybe a series coming about that. I mean, there's so much financial principle. He can't write where he's not bringing in the financial applications of it. He's writing with all these applications, and in almost every example, there's a financial one because it's so much habitual spending,
Yeah.
right? And your money routines, their habits. So, okay. Anyway. All right, let's pick it back up. What are the financial principles, the basic financial skills you should have learned in school? I learned how to write a check. That's all I can remember in home ec class. And therefore, in my household, I'm the one that writes the checks. Cindy doesn't. And so that's okay, but I learned it. But in this day and age, are our schools, is our education system equipping people for success right out of the gate when you're learning about different critical thinking skills and learning other basic skills? Are we setting our kids up for success with finances? I'm not sure. And that's what we're talking about today, equipping you or your kids or anyone else with what are the basic skills you need to learn. So that's what we're talking about today. This is Wise Money Show with Korhorn Financial Group. Thanks for being with us. My name's Mike Bernard. Across from me in the KFG studios, Kevin Korhorn. Between us, Josh Gregory. Need to say thank you to the attorneys at South Bank Legal, as well as First State Bank, for making the Wise Money Show possible. We couldn't do it without you. Thank you so much. And if you have any questions, reach out to us. You can do so a few different ways. 574-222-2000. You can call or text us, 574-222-2000. WiseMoneyRadio.com, as well as WiseMoneyBlog.com. You can find content there and submit questions there also. And then all over social media, my favorites, YouTube, Facebook, but Instagram, Twitter, wherever you listen to podcasts as well. Just search Wise Money Show, and you can follow us there, submit questions that way, comments, all that sort of stuff. So, All right, we're talking about education today. We're not talking about free college. That'll be coming up. We're not talking about what in the world does our country do with the mountain of student loan debt. We're going to be talking about that coming up as well in another episode. Today we're talking about, schools back in session. What are high schools and colleges not teaching? And the first one we all agreed on was budgeting. That is the foundation. Josh ad-libbed in there and said, well, you need to have goals. You need to know what you're budgeting for. I sort of agree with that. But Kevin, we cut you off before I even introduced the next one. What did you have?
If this is education, I've got the teacher's manual. So when I go to the back of the book, the answers are there. And here's the answer. The answer to all of this is really not putting your confidence in a high school or a college to educate your children. The answer is you have to do it. And you have to fill in whatever gaps aren't filled in through the educational process at home. And the best news is that there's never been a better time, an easier time to figure out how to do that. So you can just go to the Google and say, how do I talk to my child about setting up a budget? Or how do I talk to my child about balancing a checkbook? Or how do I talk to my child about financial goals? Because I would give, in the spirit of an educational show here, I would give Joshua partial credit for his answer, because
actually, you need to stay after class.
Detention for you.
But if you lacking goals, you lack. You may lack hope, you may lack purpose or meaning. And so I think goals are really important. A lot of times, if you're in 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th grade, great clarity on goals, it doesn't make sense. So you, as the parent, know way better than any of the teachers what would be appropriate for your child at the time.
If I can argue against that just a little bit, our friend James Clear would say, of course, everyone has the goal of having financial success. It's the habits that will determine whether they have it or not. And budgeting is a habit. It's a habit. Don't get out of high school or college. Don't earn a paycheck without starting the habit of budgeting. It will serve you very well the rest of your financial life. So I do agree that pretty much every budget is flawed because they don't count your goals. It's a zero-sum program where how much money is coming in, let's spend all of it. And I'm just going to tell you where I'm going to spend it. If goals are missing from that, your budget's wrong. But budgeting is a habit that leads to long-term financial success, which is why it's a foundation. I know you're shaking your head. We're going to keep moving, Kevin. The second foundation.
That sounds like you got partial credit there too.
That's right.
Corhorn.
The second foundational financial skill that needs to be taught is the value of saving. Now we hear it a lot, but I mean, when you're learning, when you're in the environment that you're absorbing information and assessing it to say, all right, well, what do I need to do, and what truth is this? How do I implement it? You got to learn how to save money, both for the short term and the long term, and for what purposes.
I agree with that. I mean, there are just some fundamental skills or knowledge you need to understand. I mean, one of them is just what are the different types of savings vehicles out there and which one would be appropriate. How many people come into our office really needing to be educated on the differences between, when you use a money market fund versus a CD? How do you start earning a respectable amount of interest on your safe money? And your long-term investments, what kind of savings vehicles do you use there? Is it a 401k or a traditional IRA, Roth IRA? This just sounds like a bunch of financial mumbo-jumbo or jargon to a lot of people. And I would argue that everyone out there needs to get their mind wrapped around this jargon so that it's not a foreign language to them, and they really do begin to understand how to use these tools appropriately in their financial life.
I'd even take it one step before you even get to what tools, the value of compound interest. To me, I think teaching that, every time I've taught that at Bethel University, the kids, their eyes just go wide. Because I'm writing on the whiteboard, okay, here's what you started with. 7 years later, it's this. 7 years later, it's this. 7 years later, it's this. And they're all drawn in. And even though I'm a terrible artist, they are all paying attention and are so thrilled.
Well, and that's why you start with the why, right? It's important not only that you're saving and where you're saving, but understanding why, because you get yourself exposed to that powerful compounding interest potentially.
Yeah, I think being equipped to have the right habits, and I'm watching this as my son, who's 18 and headed to college this fall. I have a son who's 19 who's in the U.S. Army, and what happens? There's a time really between 16 and 18 where there's a lot of things that change dramatically, where these kids are looking and saying, I've been saving this money all along for school, and what kind of offer am I going to get from the schools? What is it going to cost me? Where am I going to be going? And how do I do this? And then just with an open house, and with an open house, they've got some money to deal with, and then they may already have a job as well. And it's it's very difficult, because if you said, hey, my goal when I'm 18 is to be saving towards the down payment of my first house, that doesn't really work very well, because really what they're probably going to want is a cool pair of noise reducing headphones or something like that. That's going to somehow trump the house program. And so if they have the right habits, they will have the resources to fund their goals when the time comes. Because what is really most of the kids at that point in time don't know what's really important to them, and so as there's a sort of just in time training as they get their first paycheck, as they get the big chunk of money for their birthday from grandma and grandpa, as whatever types of things are happening. That's when you need to make sure, if it hasn't been taught in the schools, you as a parent are teaching it and reinforcing it with the money as it comes in.
You guys, have you heard about Legos being the next asset class for investing? Have you heard this? So there's someone who's done the geeky you'd think it's me. It wasn't me. I saw it from someone else who basically looked at what a Lego set cost new, decades ago, and then what it's resold for right now. And the growth on that, I don't think it matches the stock market, but it's fairly close. So anyway, Kipe has his birthday this summer, and he gets money. He's at that stage where people are giving him gift cards and whatnot. And he's so into Legos. So we added it all up, and it was $110 in gift cards in cash. And he's like, what can I do with this? What can I do? And he really wants a Lego. And so he picked out the one he wanted. He's like, how much is it? And it was all of it. And he looked at me. He's like, I'm not buying that. He starts laughing. Even though he was so dead set on buying a Lego, to part with all of that money just for one Lego, he realized, okay, no, that's not a wise thing to do. So you got to start these habits early. So, all right. What other financial habits or financial skills do you need to know, or your kids need to know, grandkids need to know? We're talking about that and more coming up here on Wise Money with Korhorn Financial Group. Yeah, really. We were talking for days and days, and went to different stores and went to Amazon and all of it. And he finally was like, okay, I've got it down to these three. Okay, well, no, I don't want that one. I want this one. So how much is it? Actually, so this is bonus content for you too. How much is it? Well, buddy, it's $100. Well, who's buying it? You are. He was ready to go. He was ready to go. And then he said, well, who's buying it? And I said, you are. This is your money. He said, I'm not getting that. Like, smiled and laughed. This is something we were planning for days.
Dude.
And then he just I'm not parting with the money for
He's
that.
a future politician, right?
So
glad to spend someone else's money. Oh,
that
my
is
word.
great.
That is good stuff.
You need to teach him about garage sales.
Yeah.
I know that we were looking at the secondary market.
Man, we scored when our kids were into Thomas the Tank Engine. Mm-hmm. We scored a bunch of those in perfect condition for like 25 cents a piece.
Really?
Oh, man.
I think it's going to be like Ryan looking at antiques with Legos, because they need to be damaged or without or incomplete for them to be that low, because there is a full secondary market for
That's
these things.
So funny that you're
It's
even using the
unbelievable.
phrase secondary market.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable. I wouldn't have thought that.
Well, I've got a Longa Burger basket full of Beanie Babies to sell you.
That's right.
Someone would buy them, not me. But all right.
Okay, so can you just do a recap of the skills we've hit and then say what other ones we need to hit?
Yep. And I'm just only going to introduce that last one of borrowing, and then we can start navigating wherever you guys want to take it. Starting the third segment. All right. When your child graduates from high school or college, do they know all about budgeting? So they're ready. Once they get their first paycheck, they're ready to budget and allocate it to the right spots and to the right goals. They know the value of saving for the long term. And then one other I'd throw in, they know the risks and how it works if you're going to borrow money. There's some basic financial skills that right now are not being taught in most high schools and certainly colleges. We're talking about that today. What are those skills and where should you learn them? How should you learn them? So thanks for being with us. This is the Wise Money Show with Korhorn Financial Group. My name is Mike here in the world headquarters of Korhorn Financial Group in the KFG studios, along with Kevin Korhorn and Josh Gregory. Hey, look at that. Special thanks to Bethel University Adult and Graduate Studies. That is where Josh took your elective, right, on personal finance?
That's right. Yeah.
So I went to Michigan State, slightly bigger school than Bethel, and there was no, and I was a finance major. There was no personal finance course. Shame on you. Shame on you, MSU. Also, thank you to Diane Bennett and the Inspired Homes team of realtors at on her team. Thank you very much. If you have any questions, several ways you can reach out to us. 574-222-2000. You can call or text 574-222-2000. Just put your name, maybe where you live, what your age is, and then submit your question that way. That'd be great. wisemoneyradio.com. You can submit a question right there on the right. And then all over social media, I'd encourage you to subscribe to it wherever you go for social media. If that's Instagram or Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, you listen to podcasts, whatever, you'll find us. Just search Wise Money Show and subscribe to it. And you can submit comments and questions you can share easy. And then even be notified of every time we drop new content. So I'd encourage you to do that. All right, so I just shared we're starting with the three basic financial skills, and then we're going to add to it here in just a second. The first one we hit was budgeting, and that's a habit. It's a habit that will help you achieve whatever your financial goals are. Saving is also a habit. Saving for what? I don't know. That depends on your goals. But you got to learn how to save and the value of compound interest and the different types of savings vehicles out there. That's foundational. But then the last one, and this is sort of an epidemic right now in America. It's a consumer-driven culture we have here in America. And so the third basic financial skill is borrowing. And I'm not how to borrow well. No, just what the consequences are, how it works, what the types of loans are, and so that you're prepared. You don't get yourself into something that you then wonder, well, that's not what I signed up for, and how do I get out of this thing?
Mm-hmm. I run into people who they're asking, hey, how should I structure this loan? I want to buy this house. I want to refinance. I want to whatever. And I start asking them questions about the loan that's being proposed to them. Things like, well, what kind of interest rate is it? And what's the length of the term? Is it fixed rate or is it variable? And often those are questions that have never popped into their head. They actually don't know those details on the loan. And I think, boy, before you sign on the dotted line, before you commit yourself to this obligation moving forward, there's some basic information that you need to understand, because this now is going to have consequences in your financial life. And unfortunately, a lot of people are not skillful borrowers, right?
Tell me if this sounds familiar. Are you locked into a car you hate? Have you ever heard a commercial that sounded anything close to that? And I'm not picking on people that work in the car industry, but that's, you're not locked into a car you hate. You're locked into a loan that you hate. A loan for something that at one time you liked and today you don't. And so don't, what is the saying? Don't let your mouth write a check that your body can't cash or something like that. But basically don't sign up for something that has you locked in for all these years that in a couple of years you're going to say, oh my goodness, that was a terrible idea. That's a bad decision.
Well, which is why it's not enough to just understand the mechanics of borrowing. There needs to be some development on your own philosophy of borrowing too. When should you borrow? Do you borrow to pay for a vacation or furniture or a car? Or is it okay to borrow for an education or to start a business or buy a house? I mean, your own philosophy on debt is really where it begins. But then when you decide to go buy that house, how you structure the loan can have just lasting impact on your financial life and your ability to achieve other goals.
Yeah, I've met a number of fearless borrowers in my lifetime, and it is that never ends well. It just never ends well. And so I would start out with the just hating debt and detesting it. It's a tool. So you say, well, do you really go to the toolbox and say, I hate the screwdriver and love the hammer? No, but when I think about this, so you're talking about how to borrow money. Under that umbrella, I would also add how to manage credit cards,
I was thinking
especially if you're going to college. I would go to college with one credit card that was set up before I went to college. I would make sure it's a cashback card. Fidelity has a 2% cashback card. There are other cards. You can look and find them.
What about learning the value of your credit? How to build your credit, how to protect your credit?
For sure, you need to know what your credit score is. You need to learn what things add to your credit, what things don't add to your credit. When you are looking at that credit card bill and you see on there's a sweater that you bought that you didn't really like, you don't really get the option of not paying the bill. You still have to pay the bill, and if you're slow pay, no pay, you will pay. So what I would do, especially if I'm helping a youngster with a credit card, is I would connect the credit card to the checking account so that the credit card, so you never run a balance on your credit card. Don't ever run a balance on your credit card. Make your credit card just an extension of your checking account.
So why not just use a debit card in that situation?
I have never
Because of the credit score being built, or
yeah, I've never seen I don't know if there's a debit card out there that'll pay a 2% for your transactions. And maybe it's maybe if you're thinking about a bike with training wheels, maybe it's a debit card to start out with, and then you graduate to a credit card. I don't know. I've never owned a debit card in my life, so I never. When I started in my financial life, I had a credit card, and I think the limit might have been $300. And this was back in the mid '80s, and I was one of the only people I knew that actually had a credit card. And so I've never. Debit cards came out after that, and I was just kind of institutionalized to use credit cards.
Habits.
Yeah, it's your habits, but your habit has to be I don't ever run a balance.
Exactly. Never
Ever.
pay interest.
Never.
Never pay interest.
Or fees.
that's right.
Yes.
I mean, one late fee negates all the 2% bonus for a while, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, paying interest to the credit card company at 17%, it's hard to get ahead if you're earning 2% on your transaction.
One foolish purchase. I mean, the issue with buying your goods and services with a credit card is I don't know what the statistic is. I think it's about 20%. So you spend about 20% more if you're buying with a credit card. So you need to have that in the front of your mind. Hey, I am prone to overspend using this card.
And again, I mean, we're talking about starting that education and explanation early. And so, okay, so what else? Those are three basic foundational financial skills. Josh, I know you've got another, you've added more to your list. What else?
Well, I think when you graduate from high school or graduate from college, I always try to encourage people to begin their working career immediately, starting to save for long-term goals. And a better term would be invest for long-term goals. So there needs to be some sort of skill built up before you even begin on what is a mutual fund or what are your different investment tools that are out there so that you're not fearful of them.
Oh, yes.
Right? You don't want to be intimidated by these tools and then you don't use them and years go by where you're not tapping into the power of that compound growth that can be so amazing over the long haul.
That's right. That's right. That's good. Okay, so we've got, well, you're right, because anything that you're afraid of, you'll just naturally avoid, right? And with finances being so complex, if you don't understand it, you're afraid of it, you'll avoid it. And then you'll show up down the line and I didn't realize I was supposed to be doing that. So, okay, so we are talking about the basic financial skills that you need to have when you're starting your financial life, whether that's right after high school or right after college. We've got a few more to hit coming up here on Wise Money with Korhorn Financial Group. I assume we've got more?
You've got the answer key right there, Kevin.
I do.
Which ones have we missed?
I have, well, actually, there's a lot. So we're gonna say it again. We're gonna hit the ones that we missed.
Yeah,
Is this the fourth segment?
it is.
So we've done how to do a budget. We didn't set financial goals, do a budget, pay for college, basic investing, build, manage credit cards. We didn't do how to rent an apartment, cooking and grocery shopping, long-term financial planning. Those are three that seem fairly basic, but I mean, those end up being, I mean, to me, you could add to that how to buy a car.
That's right. I had how to buy a car, how to buy a house. I didn't think of the rent an apartment.
Ooh, car insurance even.
Yep. In types of insurance, life insurance. I mean, think about how much you have to understand about finances in order to go be self-sufficient in life.
So think about this. Lori and I sat on our way back from Liberia. There were 3 seats in our row. We were in the very back of the plane. We're in the middle, but there's 3 seats. So it was me, Lori, and Peter. And Peter was a Liberian who's in the Liberian Army, who's coming to Camp Lejeune, North Carolina, to get trained by the Marines. So he was flying from Liberia to Brussels, Brussels to Newark, Newark to Atlanta, and then they were going to get him from Atlanta there. And he knows nothing. So he was sitting there watching the video screen in the seat back in front of him, and with no headphones. And so we got the headphones from the stewardess, and we said, "Here, you need to plug that in and listen."
Yeah.
So he plugged it in, and it was amazing to think about all the things that you don't know that you need to know just in order to be able to fly. And so at the end of the flight, he's like, "Okay, do I have to give these back?" I'm like, "No, those are yours." And then he actually asked the stewardess because he didn't trust our answer, and she gave him the same answer. Like,
You don't want to end up in an American jail or something.
but he didn't know how to find a gate. He didn't know how to find a bathroom. He didn't know how. And I'm thinking I wanted to change my flight and just go with the guy to make sure he got where he was going. Because I'm thinking I could just see this guy sitting in the Newark airport at 9:00 at night, having not gotten his flight to Atlanta and having no idea what's supposed to happen.
Wow.
So
All right. I was
Sheesh.
in the middle of I didn't hear everything.
You were doing
I mean,
email?
I
could
had
not believe.
had a time-sensitive Slack about transferring money. So I wanted to make sure that didn't happen until I had connected with this person. So you guys know what we're talking about? Investments, right?
We're in the second
Retirement?
segment, and
Okay.
No, this is the last segment, right?
Yeah, 4th segment.
that was
Don't mess with me.
silly.
All right. Probably not hitting any listener questions. Maybe we can hit Brent. We'll see. Okay. Thank you so much for being with us. This is the Wise Money Show with Korhorn Financial Group. My name is Mike Bernard, here with me in the KFG studios, as always, Kevin Korhorn and Josh Gregory. If you've missed anything, or you like the content we're talking about and say, hey, where can I get more of that? Well, my friend, several ways. First, on podcast, wherever you listen to podcasts. I prefer iTunes, but wherever. Just search Wise Money Show, and you'll find every episode right there. Actually, the episode count isn't even right. We're finishing the 4th season of the Wise Money Show. Excited about launching the 5th season with some enhancements and some changes. That's coming up in a couple weeks. But so we've got 4 years of content out there. The first couple, not as good, but just being honest. So you can catch every episode right there. And I'd encourage you, rate the show on podcast. That actually helps people find us and find this content. So it's really not about us. It's about other people who are looking through podcast to find wise financial principles and some of those habits. So I'd encourage you, rate the show and share it, subscribe to it wherever you listen to podcasts. And the second place you can go catch every episode is right there on the YouTube channel as well. So just search Wise Money Show when you're in the YouTube, and then I'd encourage you to subscribe to that and click that bell for notifications so you're reminded or aware of everything that we drop, whether it's a new episode or whether it's just some training or just an announcement, something like that. So just search Wise Money Show on YouTube. You can also do the same on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, Wise Money Show. And wisemoneyradio.com is how you find us online. Lastly, you guys know, call or text your questions in 574-222-2000. That's 574-222-2000. Back to the content. We're talking about what are the basic financial skills that really currently are not being taught in the typical high school or typical college, and we're hoping that changes, but really, we've already said that's not necessarily the medium that this education needs to occur in. It'd be great if it did, but if it doesn't, you're still on the hook for picking it up. So we've talked about you need to learn the skills and build the habit of budgeting, the habit of saving, and the habit of responsible borrowing, right? What else? What else are we missing? What other basic financial skills need to be built in?
You know, I would want all of our listeners to be growing in their knowledge and expertise, their comfort level in their tax picture as well. You know, the moment that you graduate, you start working and you're earning a living, the last thing you want to do is begin your working career behind the 8 ball when it comes to taxes because you didn't realize that you need to set your tax withholdings correctly, or you don't fully understand the nature of the income that you happen to be earning and what kind of a tax hit that could be. Maybe you don't fully understand the things that you can do to influence your tax picture and how you can save for those long-term goals within tax shelters, that kind of thing. Those are skills you need at the beginning of your career, not pick them up 2 or 3 decades in.
We've said this before, the U.S. tax system is one of the most complex on this planet. I mean, I don't know, if you had to create a tax system from here, I don't know how you get from creating something to what we have right now. It is crazy. And so I'll tell you, coming out of college, I had some friends of mine who said, "Oh, you guys do taxes? Can you do my taxes?" And they had just gotten out of college, and I remember delivering their tax return, and they say, "Wait, what do you mean I'm not getting a refund?" Oh, and I explain it, and they say, "I always thought that money was withheld from my check, and then I get it back. So the government uses some of my money and then gives it back to me." And when
they're borrowing from you?
That's exactly right. And it's actually not that crazy of an idea if you think about it. When you're in high school or college and just working at, the ice cream shop or whatever, you're not paying any tax. So they withhold it and then they give it back to you.
You're right.
So you're trained to think, well, that's just how it works, I guess. And so just learn, before you even learn what levers you can pull to improve your tax situation, just learning how taxes work. Mm-hmm. Foundational skill. Yeah. Okay. What else?
Well, I think something as simple as just cooking and grocery shopping and menu planning, that is, I mean, as you look at you're helping this person do their adulting process, they need to know and understand how to do that. And again, this might be just in time kind of learning. So if maybe it's when you're sending off a sophomore to college and they're going to be living in their own place and preparing their own meals for the first time ever, what it looks like. And so that is one thing. What would go along with that is how to rent an apartment.
Yeah.
So whether it's an 18-year-old who's not going off to school or a 20-some-year-old who is going to be renting an apartment for the first time, and it's very different renting an apartment in a college setting versus renting an apartment in a non-college setting. So that's something that I would want to make sure you're walking through and explaining, because all of this, if you've been exposed to it your whole life, you've picked it up and you know it, and it just kind of makes sense to you. But if you've never been exposed to it, a lot of it just doesn't make any sense.
Mm-hmm. Well, and fast forward, maybe you're done renting and you're ready to buy your first home. Boy, that's something that you want to begin thinking about well before you get to the purchase date or you start shopping for houses, because there's prep work that you need to do. You need to understand not only what kind of down payment are you going to have, but we talked earlier about how do you borrow to purchase that house? What kind of mortgage do you structure? But then the budgeting aspects that go along with it, like what are all the extra expenses that come with home ownership? How do you get yourself in a situation where you are prepared financially for the unexpected that inevitably occurs with home ownership?
That purchase, have we mentioned a car purchase yet? Have we talked about that? I mean, that's a skill that you need to learn. We have friends in the car business, so I'm not disrespecting anyone, but we've often said you don't want to learn how to buy a car or how much car to buy from the dealership. You should go in with, okay, this is really how I should structure it, and this is what I'm looking for. You want to, just like, the meal planning, you want to go to the grocery store knowing what you're getting, as opposed to go there and saying, well, what am I in the mood for?
Right? Yeah.
Right. You don't want to learn from the seafood aisle how to buy groceries.
So buying the car, or buying versus leasing, or new versus used. We've talked about these things on the Wise Money Show, but foundationally, those are skills you need to learn.
There's another skill that goes along with the car, the home ownership, and that is how you structure the insurance package that's going to protect you from unexpected events. Hail damage on your roof, or a fire, or the liability that comes with getting behind the wheel of a car. If you injured someone else, how do you make sure that you have the right protection in place? And it's a skill. I mean, we don't come out of the womb understanding how car insurance works. And so it's important if it's not taught in schools, it needs to be taught within the family, in my opinion. Don't rely upon an insurance agent to fully understand your financial life and your financial future and help you get the package right, because they may only have a limited glimpse into where you're going financially.
I mean, I go back to where we started this program, whether this financial literacy, this financial education is even necessary. So the U.S. Treasury came out and said it should be mandated, required financial literacy courses. I believe they use plural, for colleges, for college students. Yeah, I think with Uber and everything, maybe there'll be a day where not everyone will own a car. But here in the U.S., you're likely going to own a car. And you're likely going to live in an apartment or live in a house. And how do you insure those things? How do you purchase those things? These are basic skills now. This is basic. It's a basic part of the human experience here in the U.S. And so where are you getting the training to do that stuff well?
I think it's important that you recognize that it is your responsibility. And even if someday politicians do make it a legal requirement for educational organizations to push this to you, I want you to be pulling that to yourself. Go find the knowledge and the skills that you need. Seek out the wisdom of people who have walked down this road before you. And most importantly, seek out someone who can help you pull it all together. That's what financial planning is all about. How do you take all of these disintegrated skills and decisions you have to make and make them in the context of one overall plan for your future?
That's right. I couldn't say it better. I want to, but I want to try, but I can't. And well said, Josh. All right. That is all the time we have for today. On behalf of Kevin Korhorn, Josh Gregory, and all of us at Korhorn Financial Group, have a great weekend. We'll see you next Saturday for Wise Money with Korhorn Financial Group.
And if you are watching on the YouTube channel, thank you very much for hitting the subscribe button, hitting the bell, which will give you notifications of future episodes, and like and share and rate and anything else that you can do that helps us very much.
Thank you very much.
Securities offered through Silver Oak Securities, member FINRA/SIPC. Advisory services offered through KFG Wealth Management LLC. Doing business as Korhorn Financial Group. KFG Wealth Management LLC and Silver Oak Securities Incorporated companies are unaffiliated.